And here we are once again, everyone. It's the spoiler room, the last episode of the month. That is our slaying it episode. And what perfect way to end slaying it month than with tonight's movie, which is about a slayer in particular, very popular one. But before everybody knew the version that you saw on TV, there was a movie version. And yes, tonight we are talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer 1992. So thank you for venturing down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and sitting with us with your favorite drink. Although I don't have a pop top. I've got a screw top this time. It's the Chi-Chi's a Mexican mudslide. Oh, these are actually pretty good.
Chi-Chi's like the restaurant?
Yeah, like the restaurant.
The celebration of food?
Yes, the celebration of food. The ones that gave you the unlimited bottomless nachos and salsa during the dinner. Yeah.
I always wonder why my waitresses were naked.
Anyway,
sorry.
What Chi-Chi's did you go to?
The bottomless
one.
Yeah, the bottomless one. Yeah, I caught that, but yeah. Anyway, so tonight to talk about this film that Joss Whedon will not talk about is a great collection of crew members joining me tonight. First off, she is back with us again to talk some vampires. Always a pleasure to have her in the spoiler room. It is none other from the horror retrospective. Almost got it out. Kara. Hi, Kara. How you doing?
Doing good. Glad to be back.
Glad to have you. You've been becoming a regular here in the spoiler room again. It's great. All these horror and vampire movies, and great to have you here, especially for your perspective. Otherwise, it's just me and Ian, and that's just I don't know what that is. But
eventually, people are going to say, "Oh no, that weird girl's back again."
No, not at all. Not with our audience here. And yes, it is none other than the man who always keeps coming back for more. My right-hand man and friend Ian Simmons is with us as well. Hello, Ian. How are you?
I'm doing well. This is going to be a very interesting conversation.
No,
it's just
scratching post.
No. It's just I've got this movie's 30 years old and I've watched it in several different phases of my life, so it kind of means something different every time.
Which is hilarious because I didn't notice the age. I just picked it because we were doing Slaying It month, and I've been wanting to talk about this movie for quite some time. And before anyone goes any further, yes, I know I do the programming of the show, so I could probably watch it at any time, but you can't. You got to pick a timing. And this is just, I picked it because it was Slaying Month. And yes, it is the 30th anniversary year of this film, which just made my arteries harden and the AARP membership come in the mail. But still, 30 years. 30 years. And when Debbie Gibson is starting to promote a concert on AARP for fundraising.
Oh, God.
You got to start to just look at your life and go, oh, we're at that point. We're at that point.
I was on a tangent. I was on a red carpet with Debbie Gibson last year, and everybody commented on two things. One, how nice she was, and two, what kind of a deal she made with the devil, because she looks like she's 25 years old.
Yeah. I see that on the AARP and the what is it? The Cameo commercials that you see. So
she probably goes to Nicole Kidman's surgeon.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. They all dip from the same Lazarus pit, I think. So
something.
But yes, tonight we are looking at Buffy the Vampire Slayer 1992, 5 years before the Buffy TV show that came out. And we're going to dive into a lot of interesting things. But first, for those of you who may not know what Buffy the Vampire Slayer is all about, Ian's going to tell us tonight the synopsis. Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
It's pointless because anybody that I'm describing this to has massive head injuries from living under that rock for the 3 decades. So it's not going to mean anything to them.
Oh, but come on. It's a format.
Spandex, Valley Girls, tumbling.
Kara, you did it. Thank you. Throw in some vampires and you got the synopsis right there.
There you go. Right. Yeah.
All right. So, yeah, it's essentially, if you're familiar at all with the TV show, this is like the prototype of that, where you've got this, the original conception of Buffy Summers with, I don't even know if she had a last name in this
Nope,
movie. She was just Buffy.
She didn't. She was just Buffy.
But she's this, ditzy, California cheerleader who hangs out with, a bunch of ditzy California football players and other, popular girls. She has these weird dreams of, other lives in which she has this giant hairy mole on her chest and she's fighting the undead, and Rutger Hauer and Pee Wee Herman are in those dreams. And then one day Donald Sutherland shows up and starts like talking about how, I need you. You're special. Come with me after school. Yeah, he was just missing a white van, really. But it turns out she's got a destiny. She is the vampire slayer, and she's there to stop Rutger Hauer's, king vampire, whatever. And Luke Perry's in the movie is sort of this slacker, stoner, mall rat guy hanging out with David Arquette. And there's, of course, a budding romance, and there's a big dance at the end. And that led to the TV show, even though I don't think this movie did that well. I remember it being like, I think the soundtrack was more popular than the film.
I've got it. Regular rotation in my car for ages, and just listening in general. This was in regular rotation. If you if you ever wondering, wow, what was the 90s like musically, just pick the soundtrack up. You'll hit all the notes, because there's
from 92. Is that a vintage CD you've got there?
This is the actual 92 release CD. This is my CD I picked up in 92. I still have. The case has changed. I picked up a case because, the cases would break after a while. But yeah, it's with the insert and everything. It's from 92. And there went the disc, so that just broke it. No. But the music in here is fun. The movie is fun. Joss Whedon wasn't so much fun, apparently. Yeah, because
he didn't go around Heine pinching.
No, he didn't do Heine pinch. He did it.
Well, as far as we know, I mean,
and
those girls were too young.
Well, our 17 or 18-year-old was our 18-year-old, because it was her senior dance. Is actually 23, Christy Swanson as Buffy the Vampire Slayer in here, along with a variety of familiar faces, especially from early 90s. A lot of budding and up and coming performers in this film. That is interesting. And I saw this in the theater by myself. I remember seeing it in the theater, and I dug it. As a matter of fact, that's when I got out the soundtrack afterwards. I'm like, the music's great. Actually, I got it for one. I Fought the Law by Mary's Danish, their cover of I Fought the Law and the Law one. That's why I got this, in all honesty. But I remember seeing it, and I dug it okay, and then I watched it again. I tried to find my VHS. I know it's around here somewhere. I couldn't find it. I actually had to rent it. God, I couldn't, because I couldn't find my VHS. I know. But I dug it. Cara, do you remember when you first saw this movie?
I had rented it. I didn't get a chance to watch it in theater, but I loved it, and I'm not gonna lie, I had a bootleg. I used to watch it all the time.
Nice. Well, eventually show on cable, and they sell blank VHS for a reason. It wasn't for recording family events. No, it was so you could go ahead and get ready to press record or do the timer if you figured it out on your VHS.
It's not just for creating movies for moms and dads.
That's right. Oh, that's what they were doing, not just making margaritas in there. But yeah, do you remember when you saw this the first time?
I do. It was one of those profoundly disheartening and disappointing movie-going experiences. I have to preface this by saying I was to call me a Luke Perry fan in the early 90s would be a gross understatement. He was the man for me. I was a big 90210 guy. I just thought he was the coolest. So I found out he was in a movie. Unfortunately, like he was big in the 90s and he did a lot of movies. Unfortunately, a lot of those movies were not that great. But I went to see Buffy because I liked vampires. I loved Luke Perry. I'm like, this is it. Unfortunately, whatever he was doing with his hair and that little goatee and the kind of the weird stoner thing. Like, he was not Luke Perry to me until he shows up in that dance where he's actually got the kind of 90210-ish hair and he's got that cool jacket. That's great. But then also, it's a PG-13 vampire show. So when vampires are getting stabbed through the chest, they're literally just like falling over and dying.
Yeah.
Like, even, Fright Night and the other kind of vampire movies I grew up watching, like, they explode or they disintegrate or something. I'm like, what is this? It felt like a compromised film. And it wasn't until years later when the Buffy TV show came out, which I was a big fan of at the time, that I realized, oh, that's right. This is the sketch. This is like this crazy young kid pitching his idea to Hollywood. And they're like, we'll give you this. And then later he's able to parlay that into something truer to his vision. Watching it again this week, I've only seen a couple of times in the last few decades. I was like, yeah, this is fun. I still see it as an imperfect version of something that would go on to be perfected. It's just, it's a time capsule piece. I don't think it's a particularly good movie, and it's not that enjoyable past the first like half hour, but it's cute.
And see, for me, I enjoy it immensely. It's strange. It's camp. They took a light way with it. What's interesting is it makes me wonder, because I read the stories about it later on, about how Joss did not like the direction they were taking the film. The producers in the studio wanted an upbeat, kind of campy comedy about vampire slayers, and he was looking for his dark, mysterious, his brooding, dark, heavy, what we got in 97. But it makes me wonder, would we have gotten the TV show in 97 if they would have actually gone the route that, because he basically took the ideas that he came up with in the movie and expounded on them in the TV show. But, it makes me wonder, if they didn't take him off, if he wouldn't have come back with the TV show, if it would have been just a few movies and then, moved on. I was curious about that watching it this time. I'm like, maybe there was a good reason to come out of him being ticked off at this movie.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, because I don't know if his vision was to do movies. Like, if he had gotten, like you're saying, a true Buffy the Vampire Slayer film, would he have had a sequel in mind? Because for me, Buffy works perfectly as a TV show that can run several seasons and explore different themes. I mean, I would have been devastated if we never got the Buffy and Angelus kind of like turn that was it seasons 2 and 3, where she loses her virginity and her boyfriend like turns into the big bad for like 2 seasons or whatever it was. It's some beautiful, although looking back, 1990s kind of cheesy bits to it, but it dramatically, I think it was tight. So yeah, I'm glad that we got this version of it, because it led to better things. But watching it, I'm like, I'd rather just kind of go watch the Buffy TV show, because I see those Joss Whedon seeds in here fighting with the studio vision. I think Donald Sutherland was pretty good. I love Rutger Hauer as an actor, but I could see that he was like trying to do something serious, but then he would have to do like, I don't know what his line was, like, as if. I'm like, no, just stop. Turn that volume all the way down.
I was thinking in reference to the can of hairspray and the lighter, and he's like, police.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And see, I don't know. Maybe here's my critic card. I love all those bits about this movie. I look at it as time capsule. I look at it as a standalone. There's the Buffy the TV show, and then there's this one. There's this, which is a separate beast, and I think I take it for that. I totally, even though it's similar characters, that I think I totally just disassociate it. Maybe it's because of when I watched it from the TV show, that I look at them at just like, this is just another, like an Elseworld or an alternate telling or whatnot, because this has so much stuff I love in it. The cheesy one-liners, the camp, Christy Swanson, who, she's not a high school student. We're talking early 80s, but there's no way you're buying that she's a high school kid. I just, or Luke Perry or David, nearly anyone in here, the main characters look like like actual teenagers, like they're supposed to be. The supporting cast, I think, kind of does. Hilary Swank, kind of does, and her group of friends. But the main characters themselves, I didn't buy that they were teenagers.
Yeah. It's also weird because we've got the benefit of hindsight, but the Buffy character, I don't think that they were developed enough as these vapid kind of mall rat shopping kids as we would see 3 years later in Clueless.
Right.
It's kind of like this is as like you like to say, great value version of Clueless. Everything in this movie is just slightly off by like 2 degrees. And the compounding effect of that when it's over is like, there's going to be something better than this. And it turns out there kind of are.
But, maybe this served as the template. Cara, what'd you think of Buffy, Christy Swanson and Buffy and her group of friends, especially for early 90s teens?
To me, they're all pretty believable. I mean, as far as the way they carry themselves, they're very one-dimensional. What I like is... and I don't know if anybody would agree, but I kind of think of Buffy as being more like a coming of age story. Like she grows up and she realizes there's more to life than just the mall and the latest fashion. And she really kind of changes and sort of becomes ostracized from her own group, even though they're the popular kids. They're like, who are you? I can't relate to you anymore.
Yeah. It does have that coming of age. She does mature. You do get an arc. For a silly, campy film like this, they do keep a bit of that Joss Whedon type of arc, growth of a character with Buffy's character, because not only do you get that, but you get later on, how one of their friends, Veronica, died. She's actually kind of mourning her friend while her friends are like mourning the yellow jacket she wore.
It's very, very Heathers in that respect.
It felt a lot. There was a huge Heathers vibe with this group of friends, especially. And we've got Petty, who's from usually the Earth's Mightiest Critics. He shows up and he said, "Good night. This movie had an innocence that today's movies don't have." It does, actually. It's one of those vampire films where I don't mind that there isn't a lot of blood, because it wouldn't have fit this overall tone. I mean, this movie just in general, it starts off campy. It starts off goofy. And for me, I guess I didn't miss the blood. And usually I do for vampire films. I mean, freaking Twilight, you've got werewolves and vampires. You shouldn't have them shattering. There should be blood and guts everywhere. But you didn't get that in Twilight. But here, I think it fits the story to not have that, because the whole thing almost feels like satirical, but it's innocent. It's innocent. You said it, Ian. It's PG-13, that they're going for with this, and it fit. But I guess I didn't miss it. Maybe because I found too much charm with this story. I don't know.
And everyone's got their own taste. It's just that, and again, I think my expectation when I saw it when I was, 15 or 16 or whatever, is coming from watching horror movies. I'm like, okay, it's a vampire film. It's sort of what would happen, a couple decades later with Twilight. I'm like, this is a bloodless vampire movie. What is going on here? And it felt wrong then, and it felt wrong with Buffy. I mean, there's still ways that you can have a high school comedy that, comments on teen vacuousness and have it be an actual bloody vampire movie. I'm thinking like something like an Evil Dead style thing. Have the blood be green or black. They've done black blood.
Black
they're like,
blood,
we can't show actual violence. It's got to be science fiction, horror violence, whatever the standard is. But yeah, it's just, again, everything felt kind of off or half measured. It's like I kept being taken out of the movie by consciously registering these compromises when the vampires get staked through the hearts. This is the first time I think I've ever seen a vampire movie up to that point where they don't disintegrate or blow up or something happens. Like, why is he falling over as if someone had just stabbed him in the chest with a knife? They might as well have just stabbed him in the chest with a knife, because it has the same effect, but that's not supposed to kill vampires, but this does.
Emo vampire death.
Yeah.
Look, the Paul Rubens death with the
That was awesome.
Ooh,
That
yes,
was
that was great.
beautiful.
That was great. That's the only reason that I can forgive this.
It made for a great end credit sequence too, because you still
I
get him
loved
at
that.
it was
Still
great.
going.
Still going, which is funny because I was reading up Paul Rubens' character, Aelin, who was the right-hand man to Lothos, played by Rutger Hauer, who I love. I love so many people in this film, too. Maybe that's why, because when I was a kid, I loved just so many people in this movie. I loved Rutger Hauer, and seeing him play this just cheesy, over-the-top Nosferatu, Dracula-type guy. But Paul Rubens, I guess his character was actually supposed to be female, and was supposed to be played by, was it Joan Chen? I think it was, or so, but she
Really?
fell out, so they rewrote the part for Paul Rubens, and this was his first movie since the incident in the movie theater.
Was this before or after he came out and did the MTV Movie Awards after that happened?
I think he came out around that same time. It may have been when he came out at the movie awards, I think,
because that was like the all-time great, like, I'm gonna put this scandal behind me, like, you're gonna laugh about it still, but this squashes it. He just comes out and says, hey, heard any good jokes lately?
It was great, but he's hilarious, and I really like Paul Rubens, and it was funny because this is the first time a lot of people saw him outside of his Pee Wee Herman persona. I mean, I remember it, and I loved his character. He was a perfect, you don't get a whole lot of Rutger Hauer. You get mostly him because he's doing the footwork for Lothos, chasing after Luke Perry's character and biting, David Arquette's Benny, and everybody else, but I really I thought it was great seeing Paul Rubens not being Pee Wee Herman, and seeming to enjoying not being Pee Wee Herman.
Well, it's the same year that he popped up for like 2 minutes in Batman Returns.
Right. Yep.
And people are like, wait a second, that's Pee Wee Herman.
Pee Wee
Herman. My God. And not only that, but playing as serious part as you can get for Batman Returns, and also just helping his wife dump a newborn child into the river.
Yeah, he was just in a cameo for it. So it was great seeing him as not Pee Wee. But I liked him in Lothos quite a bit. Him and Rutger seemed to be just having a lot of fun with this role. Like they just took this role. Okay, this looks like it'd be fun, and they didn't cash it in. But at the same time, you could tell they're just having a blast. Cara, what'd you think of our two main vampires?
I liked Rutger Hauer. I wasn't familiar with who he was at the time because I was still a kid, so I didn't discover who he was until I watched Blade Runner in college, and I was like, who is this? But I think he does really well. The film overall, it definitely has that 90s feel, but I think it still holds up. I really don't have any negative critiques against any of the actors, but I do like how they kind of stuck in that classic horror nod with that Shining, was it the Shining reference? Salem's Lot, where Benny's floating outside of Pike's window, and he's like, "Let me in."
Yeah.
And there was that nice little exchange. It's like, "I'm hungry. You're floating."
Oh,
yeah.
I quoted.
He went to sleep. He almost let him in until he realized, wait a minute.
Oh, I love the scene between Arquette and Luke Perry in that. I'd quote that all the time. My buddy and I would quote that part all the time where he gets up and he's like, "Man, where you been, Benny? I call you like 50 times, man." He's like, "This old guy, he picked me up. I thought he was gonna hit on me." I mean, I loved all the characters in this too. I mean, Luke Perry's stoner and David Arquette, Benny Stoner, which he's more vampire. We get to see more of him as a vampire than stoner, but I liked these two guys quite a bit. They reminded me of a bit. Well, one's more talkative than the other. A little bit of Jay and Silent Bob in some ways. Early, the spirit of them, the way they were, the way talked, Benny more so maybe than Perry, but I liked, I quoted it many times, but I really enjoyed Perry's character in here. He's fun, and again, all of these actors could have easily just cashed out. I mean, it's a goofy movie, especially all of them. Some of them were up and coming, some of them already had serious parts, but they don't. They actually stick to the gimmick, and they seem to be in for this movie, and they're having fun, and I think that helps versus an actor who just shows up and goes, "Oh, this is a goofy vampire film. Okay, I'm just gonna," especially Donald Sutherland. Adding Donald Sutherland, just having his presence, I think adds a lot.
Well, he, I think, lucked out with this part because his Merrick character is so kind of mercurial and removed that it's hard to tell if Donald Sutherland gave a shit or if he was creating a character with this, because he literally is just like scenes of him standing over in the corner, like, like, Buffy, you were supposed to meet me after school. That's great. I don't know how else you act that part, but they might have just worked that in with him. But yeah, I mean, it's all right. But again, I see what that character. This is the sketch, and I see what a fully realized version of this character looks like with Giles later on in the show. I'm like,
right.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you watch old Star Trek and you see what the Klingons look like. And you're like, for 1963, that was pretty cool. But then you watch what they did with Michael Dorn in The Next Generation, you're like, oh yeah, this is what it could be. That other thing was just what they had at the time, but this is what it's supposed to be. And that's how I view. I've said this 100 times already on this show, but that's kind of how I feel about Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
I get it.
I thought he did all right. Like, to me, he's believable as this tired old man who's been doing this for centuries. It's just worn him down. But I half believe the only reason he even got this part was because his son was David in the Lost Boys. So it's kind of like throwing the nod at the family.
I would doubt that that's part of the casting. Apparently, Joss wanted him in the film, but he, as he worked with Donald, he thought Donald Sutherland. Get this, Joss Whedon thought Donald Sutherland was a dick, and that was part of the reason why he left. Joss Whedon thought, but anyway.
Well, listen, I'm gonna stand up a little bit for Joss Whedon, because I know he's got a reputation.
Yeah,
but I met him at San Diego Comic-Con in like 2004 or something like that. He was just on the floor talking to like some fans, just like walking. He wasn't like at a booth or anything. He was just walking around. He was very nice with his fans. And I went up to him because I was a comics journalist at the time. I was writing for a website and I was actually getting paid. And I hit him up for an interview. And we spent 10 minutes trying to work out the logistics of how we were going to get together and talk the next day before I had to catch a flight out of town. And it didn't work out. He did give me his email address and said, we'll hook this up and everything. But he was, and that's one of the reasons that it kind of really disappointed me later on, is because I was a huge fan of his work. After meeting him and interacting with him for a bit, I was a big fan of him. And then to find out all these stories, it's like, well, yeah. And kind of like Mark and I were talking in our Singing in the Rain episode a few days ago, which is kind of strange, with the Johnny Depp and Amber Heard situation. You just never know. And that swings both ways.
Oh, yeah.
You hear the stories about what an unrepentant, raging asshole Joss Whedon is, and there's probably some truth to that, but there's probably truth going the other way.
Oh, no, absolutely. I was saying it mostly in jest. I just, I imagine Donald Sutherland, because apparently Donald was big on improv. And kind of changing his character up because he's Donald Sutherland. At least that's the approach he kind of took. And that didn't agree well with Joss, who had a very specific image, like with a lot of things in this movie, for the Merrick character. Like originally, Merrick was supposed to commit suicide because this film was supposed to be a lot darker. He was supposed to get turned by Lothos, get bit by Lothos, because you get the scene with the the tossed away. I loved it. The Rose Bowl parade floats that are this graveyard of floats is where they're at. And, it's an early confrontation between Buffy and Lothos, and Merrick shows up. It's actually well directed, and we'll get to it in a minute, but this movie's actually, I like how it was directed quite a bit. But the characters all show up, our main characters, and they discover it's a little too early for Buffy to confront Lothos, and Lothos like, oh, well, too bad, I'm going to take a bite. And Merrick dives into, in between them, which he's not supposed to do. And he was going to try to stake Lothos, and he gets staked in the movie version. But I guess in the film, in the version Joss had, he was supposed to get bit by Lothos. As Lothos goes in to bite Buffy, Merrick gets in the way and he gets bit, and then he commits suicide so he doesn't turn into a vampire. I'm like, well, shit, that's a lot darker. That's a hell of a lot darker than what we get. I kind of like the way it went in the movie, in all honesty.
Well, yeah, because it fits for this movie. If that happened in this goofy light teen comedy, then like, whoa, what's going on here?
And all Petty of a sudden, I'm all Sylvia Plath.
Yeah. Petty makes a good point. He says it's a movie that I could see with my little children. Also, Donald Sutherland gives it an extra. You agree with that, Cara?
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of those films that just anybody can come together. Like, it has some of those cheeky comments, like when she's on the motorcycle, but I think it's bland enough to where even if you're watching it with the kids, it'll just kind of go over their head and they won't really understand anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it's just a fun watch in general, even just for a movie night. Like, you don't really have to be too careful about who you watch it with.
Yeah, because it's got that kind of innocence. It's got that innocent approach. I mean, things are implied, but they don't fully come out and say things. I mean, in the beginning, yeah, you've got the jocks being jocks, who I love these. Wow, if there was ever the epitome of the jocks, it's our Buffy's boyfriend and his two buddies.
Very chauvinist. Like, let me borrow her. No, you'll get her dirty.
I know, right? And what I love, and that was part of the growth, though, that you have for your Buffy character, in all honesty, because she sees those guys later on. She kind of sees them how they truly are. Mm-hmm. It's like, and he ends up going with who's it, Jennifer, played by Michelle Abrams, in here, like, perfectly. Like, that's that character, and what you want for that character. She just was embodied the kind of pushover friend, the hanger on. But yeah, these three jocks are total jocks. And her boyfriend, like I said, they're like that on purpose, so you could see the growth of Buffy, because you get that point later on where his friend, I couldn't believe it. His friend goes, ooh, I got to get me some, and tries to, and he grabs her ass, and she literally hip throws him to the ground. It slams against the locker, and I love his reaction, like, whoa. And then the boyfriend comes in, like, hey, she's mine or whatever, and she's just like, screw both you guys.
Get lost.
Right? Mm-hmm. I mean, I liked how this was a part of Buffy that I felt was still Joss, was the strong female part, the way Buffy kind of grew. And even though it not quite what we see it later on, I think her character, I may have kept the most consistent, for maybe what he was looking for versus the rest of the film. But I liked her approach and everything, and Christy Swanson, I thought she played it well. And some of the stunts are her. She is actually doing some of the kicking and gymnastics part, I think. Not all of it, but some of it. And yeah, I mean, I like the way her character grows, and you have these chauvinistic guys there to help show that growth. Whereas you have the stoner guy who's the nice guy, right?
I don't know. Like, would you say it's maybe kind of like a predecessor to like early girl power, kind of like you can do for yourself. You don't need some jerk kind of like just pushing you around and bullying you around. Like, she actually stood up for herself. She also fought the villains. So she's kind of like this, not necessarily like a warrior, but she's a hero to younger girls. Like, she's a good role model.
Yeah, I mean but that's not. I mean, that was not as rare for the era as I think we're making it out to be. I mean, if you look at 1987, you've got. I mean, it's not a science fiction or an action movie, but it was Can't Buy Me Love with Patrick Dempsey. I mean, it's pretty much this movie, except for the whole, the vapid kind of high school girl with the even more vapid clique. She ends up going out with and giving a makeover to the nerdy, lawnmower boy, and he becomes popular, and the tables turn, and the same kind of growth. I mean, this was sort of a template style film that was honestly kind of going out of fashion by the early 90s, that was revived later in the 90s by movies that more commented on that. I think Joss Whedon was sort of wanted to be ahead of that curve, but he was stifled because he was like 3 years too early for this. And then Clueless came out, and then Kevin Williamson with Scream, and I think that is what opened the door for Joss Whedon to say, hey, I've got this Buffy TV show idea. Remember that thing that you shit all over 4 years ago? It's time.
Which is funny because the director of this film was the producer of the show.
Yeah.
Is the executive producer.
Yeah, it was Kaz and Fran Rubel Kazooie, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you said it. I wasn't able to say
I think I was the only naysayer. Like, when they announced the TV show, I was like, why? I don't see it going anywhere. I didn't expect it to make it past its first season. I watched it. It was fun. It grew on me, but I just didn't see it at the time. I did like how it picked up right where the movie left off, though, like as a continuation.
Yeah, it was actually a continuation. They do make references that Joss had put in the original script, which was including Buffy setting fire to the entire gym to kill all the vampires in it. That didn't happen in the movie, but it was supposed to. And they do make references in the TV show. You're right. And there are a few other references as well, because they used the outline of his script anyway before they really chopped it up.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, it's been a while since I watched those early seasons, but there is a flashback scene to the timeline of the movie where it's Sarah Michelle Gellar in the cheerleader outfit, and she's introduced to Merrick, but it was Richard Riley, the character actor who was from Office Space. He was the guy who did the Jump to Conclusions, Matt.
Yes.
And yeah, that was really fun to see Sarah Michelle Gellar play the Christy Swanson part in the way that I think Joss Whedon had wanted that character to be played in the movie version.
Right.
That portrayal of her in that flashback in the TV show is what I wanted to see out of Christy Swanson in the TV version.
Oh, and look, Petty showed up with another comment that's probably going to trigger Ian. Don't get triggered, Ian. He goes, "It's a shame that the series wasn't as good as the movie. I guess it must be a budget issue."
That's confusing to me on several levels. But, as they say in France, I know Petty's from Argentina, chacun a son goût. It means everyone has their own taste.
They do. No, they do. And in all honesty, I'm kind of with Kara on this. I had friends who were just adored Buffy, talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I didn't actually watch a lot of it when it was out. I didn't really. I watched it later. My wife was watching it. She's a big fan of the TV series. And when she was watching it, I sat down and watched it with her. And at first I was like, I'm not quite seeing the big deal with it. I was enjoying it okay, but I was like, because for me, I loved the movie, in all honesty. I really actually...
That was my hang up too, honestly. I was like, why? What are you doing?
I loved the colors. I loved the crazy characters in the movie, the camp, the kind of that innocent spirit of stuff. And then, you get, the true Buffy, and it was just like, whoa. And then once we got into it was okay, but then there were a few, and I don't know a lot of the episodes and everything. My wife would know better, but for me with the TV show, and the reason we're bringing it up is because it is related to the movie, folks. It started to hit a season where I was really getting tired of it. It was taxing on me. It was the episodes before, like the season or season and a half before the singing episode, because that season, like with the Spike thing and all that, I liked Spike. I love Spike. Don't get me wrong. Love the characters. But the storyline, what they were doing with Buffy, it was getting muddled, and I was just like starting to feel like a rinse, wash, repeat. And I'm like, okay, are we moving beyond this or what? And then they did the singing episode and leave it to Joss Whedon to take a singing episode and actually kind of right the ship of where they were going and even retcon a couple of things for it and explain a couple of things. And after that singing episode, it picked back up and I started to enjoy it more. But for a while before the singing episode, I was like, this is a slog. Were you there too, Kara? Excuse me.
I liked that. Just speaking of the singing episode, I liked that slap in the face moment at the end, like where they resurrected her because they thought they saved her from hell, and she's like, "I was in heaven, you buttheads. You ruined it for me."
Yeah, I dug that part too. Like I said, that whole episode and going forward, it kind of righted things for me. But still, it was hard to get into because I did enjoy this movie so much. This movie just struck a chord with me because of the fun and the innocence, even at its darkest moments. I mean, I liked a lot of it. It struck a chord with me. It was like, I'm watching this on the big screen going, this is fun. This is like the campy stuff I wanted to see, and quoted it quite a bit. Yeah. I'd walk around every so often and quote Rutger Hauer's character. Oh, show me a real Slayer. Yeah, I know. Ian's like, oh my God. Why?
Well, no, we had similar reactions to the TV show being announced, but for different reasons. I was like, I don't want to see this TV show because I didn't think the movie was very good.
Yeah.
Like, why would I want to watch a TV series based on something that I didn't enjoy? But I think I was pretty into it from early on. I think it got better and better. But I will agree with you. Like, there are, I think, past season 4, they could have just wound it down, but then they get into, like you mentioned, the whole like Spike thing, and they're sort of a victim of their own success because he became a popular character. Like, wow, we need to put him in everything, and there's gonna be like a love triangle, and Spike and Buffy are gonna be doing it. And like, no, just quit.
Nah.
And then they like at the very end, the only plus of like the last season is they actually brought in an early Nathan Fillion, who would then go on to work with Joss in Firefly,
right?
As like the evil priest who wants to bring about the end of the world. And there's like all of a sudden there's a house full of of new Slayers. It's like the sorority of Slayers. I'm like, you guys are really, I can see the smoke coming off the wheels. Yeah, it was not a way to go out.
The show grew on me. I did come to like it. My only gripe is singing episodes. That was like a horrible 90s thing. Even Xena the Warrior Princess had a singing episode.
Yeah.
Did they? I didn't watch much Xena, and maybe I made the right decision. I don't know. Singing episode of Xena, jeez.
I'm not sure if Hercules had one, but yeah, Xena had one. That was kind of the gimmick for a while. Was this before your Glee and everything? They'd have singing episodes. But that's okay because after the singing episode, then Dawn, Diva of the Spoiler Room, loves Repo, the genetic opera, which has the performer who plays Giles in that one singing. So she loves that.
Had to grow on me too.
Okay, I'm not the only one. I don't feel so bad. Dawn and I disagree on very few films. That's kind of one of them, to where I'm like, and she's like, hey, yeah. But Ian, you would appreciate it because Dawn was kind of like, with the Batman. So there you go. So you two are in this.
No, I was not with the Batman.
I know you were.
It was
you
a dripping, visceral hate, and I feel the exact same way about Repo the Genetic Opera, a movie that I've watched twice. Repo, repossess this generic opera. That's what I would say.
Wow.
I watched it twice. I gave it, I think there was like 5 years between viewings. I'm like, no, this is still shit. But I love the people involved.
The music. They should have been trained before they went in for that. I'm no expert either. I can't carry a tune to save my life, but I don't make movies.
And neither did they.
But luckily, there's no singing in the Buffy the Vampire Slayer 1992. What I will say though is I do enjoy the direction of this film, and watching it again now as like critic eyes, because before I just watched it because I really enjoyed it. I've watched this movie many times. Like I said, I quoted it often. Watching it through director's eyes, they actually do some fun direction things in here for the type of film it is. Like you're doing the one song eat out my heart on here. It's performed by the Divinals. I ain't gonna eat out my heart anymore. They're doing the montage thing while she's training, which it's a great song for the training montage. But at one point, she gets into a phrase, I love you, I do, boy. And they actually have in the montage footage that goes along with the lyrics. They have during that part, you have Buffy with her boyfriend in the montage, and she goes off to go training, and he's just like, oh, and then she comes back and hops on him and gives him a big huge smooch or whatever, and then he feels a little better. I don't care, that douche, he could die earlier. I didn't like him at all. Hurt my Buffy. But anyway, okay, I had a crush on
music video though. It was good.
What? Yeah, it was like a music. It was like a music video, but there's some other parts in here as well that are directed, I thought, very well for the film that it is. It's actually, the way it flows and the way a lot of the scenes come together, I thought were edited well, especially the comedic part. Like Buffy, as the vampires show up at the dance, and they can come in because we invited them. They're seniors. See what I mean? I've watched this movie way too many times. Anyway,
technically that is true. It's an invitation.
That's true. So she goes off and looks for Lothos, and she's standing there, and all of a sudden, Paul Rubens just pops up in the back of her and just goes, "Admit it. Are there times when you just have that not so fresh feeling?" It's
less than fresh.
Less than fresh, yeah. It was just a great little moment. But there's a lot of those in this film that I enjoy. I don't know.
To burst your bubble, Mark, but I rolled my eyes super hard in the theater when I saw that when I was 15, because by that point that douche joke was way played out. That was a studio note. I'm convinced Joss Whedon did not write that line.
No, I would no.
It makes me curious though, like from an occult perspective, because I didn't, obviously when I was a kid, I didn't think about it, but the fact that the Slayer is a female, so she uses her moon or her time of the month to detect vampires, and she's using something that already happens naturally, which is cramping. So that's how she can, it's her vampire radar or something. I just kind of thought that was interesting, because you're taking two separate things that are blood related and kind of putting them together in a way that I never would have thought to do.
Yeah, that was actually a neat innovation. I'm surprised, and I'm also not surprised that they didn't explore that more in the TV show.
Yeah, that was abandoned by Joss in the TV show. He's like, no, we're not doing that. Oh, look, Petty again. The last Batman movie was pretty decent. He saw it a few days ago and he quite liked it. Well, Petty, you're one of the few people who've watched the streaming and actually enjoyed it, because there's two schools apparently for most of the enjoyment of the Batman. And those who watched in theater, more of those people than those who didn't enjoyed it in the theater, but now more people streaming apparently don't care for it.
Is that true? So I haven't heard that.
Well, no, if I go by my news feed. But not anybody's talking about this film, which is a shame, because go ahead, Cara.
No, I was going to say, I saw it at home, but it sounds like it has the Avatar effect. Like everybody in theaters like, ooh, ah.
It may have been. I don't know. It may have been the audience experience as well. I saw it 3 times in the theater. So, and it's taken me a lot to not watch it again on streaming, because I have a lot of other things to do. And that, it's a long movie to carve out 3 hours. I really have to plan for it ahead of time, but I will watch it again before it leaves streaming.
Sparkly Batman.
He doesn't sparkle, but it explains it, because those vampires are made of glass, apparently, that we discovered later on in that Twilight series when they got attacked. But these vampires aren't made of glass in Buffy at all. They are made of the 90s. And
No hearts of glass.
No Hearts of Glass.
That would have been a good song for that soundtrack.
Hearts of Glass.
Little Blondie.
Yeah, but
Mhm.
even you get your Ozzy song during the
Party with the
party with the
Animals.
animals.
Yeah.
See, I mean, as much as yes, it's cheesy camp, and you're like, they tried to do some creative things. It's not the Buffy that you know, but it's a standalone Buffy for me. You've got the Buffy TV show, and you've got this, and I think I enjoy them both for different reasons.
Yeah.
What's even more fun though, rewatching it, is just the sheer volume of people, like we mentioned at the beginning of the show, that are in this movie. I mean, we've already mentioned it slightly. Hilary Swank, David Arquette, Luke Perry is in here, Rutger Hauer, Paul Rubens. Okay, but then you get Stephen Root in here as the wonderful principal. I love the principal in this. The conversation he has about drugs.
LSD.
Yeah.
And she's like so bored, she spits a push pin at a fly.
Yeah, and which freaks him out. But I just love his whole conversation. Yeah, we were at we were at Van Morrison concert, and the music, I could just see it was just flowing. It was just flowing, and the girl I was with, her head got as big as a balloon, and then she kills the fly, and he's just like, and then after that, I started freaking out. It's just like, I love the prince. Or at the end when you've got all the spiked vampire bodies around, he's going detention.
Detention.
I think that's everybody. No, wait. I mean, he's having fun in here, but you get like a very brief appearance of Seth Green in here. You do get.
Where was Seth Green? I missed that.
I didn't recognize him.
He actually had a scene apparently, but it was cut. But you can see it's when she busts out of the. It's very brief. You usually see the back of him. He's the redheaded vampire that kicks Buffy. She comes out of the gym, I think it was, but he kicks her. But it's very brief. But apparently he did.
Redhead's going to kick her in the back.
Well, yeah, and then.
Well, I was just wondering, did they have to use like wires or something to get him up to the height where he could kick? I think it was at that exact same Comic-Con that I actually passed Seth Green. I swear to God, I nearly tripped over him. It was amazing. He's a short man.
Yeah, that's so I've heard. But yeah, you get Ben Affleck in here, which I forgot he was in here till the basketball scene, where he's one of the basketball players. Where vampire, was it a vampire? His buddy, I forgot the name of him now, but he was Zeph. It was Zeph, played by Thomas Jan. I think that wasn't it? Yeah,
no, it was Thomas Jane. Tom Jane was the guy in the mechanic shop.
Oh, that's right. He was the mechanic shop guy. It was Gruler. That's who it is. Sasha Jensen playing Gruler. It was the Gruler character who's vamped out, who shows up. He takes the ball away from. I was like, holy crap, Ben Affleck with curly hair, like really curly hair.
I think this was like the year. This was either the year or the year before he was in School Ties.
Yeah.
And so what's great is like, I love the cameos when it's not even like, oh, this is my early career. No, this is when you are just going to be random basketball guy on the court. Like your big break is getting to have a reaction with one of the main characters.
Not even credited. He's not even
Right.
in the credits because he doesn't get a speaking part. So he doesn't have to have a credit. So yeah, I mean.
and Thomas Jane.
Mm-hmm.
At the end, you see his credit. It's Tom Janes.
Yeah, Tom Janes. Yeah, I mean, there's all kinds of recognizable faces in here. You get the goofy, you get the goofy coach in here too, the existential coach. And remember, when we all work together we'll win, right? The guy who should have.
Yeah, been. It was that was Mark DiCarlo.
Yeah, Mark DiCarlo.
His claim to fame was he was on a TV show called Studs about that time. Mm-hmm. The other claim to fame is he went to the high school that I went to.
Did he really?
Yeah, it was like a big coup. Everyone was jealous that one of the kids on the school paper got to interview and was like, "Oh my God, he's such a big star." Oh my God.
Oh, I didn't know Alexis Arquette was in this also.
Alexis Arquette, really?
The vampire DJ.
Yeah.
Was that? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
I didn't recognize him.
No.
No, well, because of the makeup on him, for
Yeah.
sure. But I mean, Candy Clark was Buffy's mom. I mean, there's so many people. You could tell it was
Ricky
kind
Lake.
of a. Ricky Lake showed up. Yeah, she was the waitress.
Waitress, yeah.
Yeah, she's the waitress where they dump the money. I love that scene too.
Like, what can we afford? Like 2 coffees or a hot dog?
It's just so great how he just dumps the money on the tray. And
it was amazing. 10 years before that in Fast Times at Ridgemont High.
Oh.
Anyway, sorry.
Yeah. Slash was in this.
Are you okay?
I'm okay. I got an itch right here. Slash with it. Yeah. I mean, they had a lot of people, so you could tell it was probably studio trying to cram who they could, because this was going to be kind of the comedy gimmick cameo movie they were planning, and that's not what Joss wanted, which we found out 5 years later. Petty asks, when the film was released, what audience was it aimed at? Teenagers, right? Did it work for them, or was it a failure? It's hard to say. It was $7 million budget only. Even with all these folks in it, they're early in their careers, so that's why you could afford them. Probably, it did make like 16 million. So by that standards, it was a success. Some of my friends that had seen it, they enjoyed it. I'm not sure just how much it was, because back then, analytics was a little bit tougher to catch who was watching what. I mean, now, cripes, you just you've got those folks that troll all social media and look what age, what demographic, what gender, and what area mentioned the movie. It's like you can get that now.
It's the what is it? The updated ASL.
Yeah, exactly.
American Sign Language.
No,
age, sex, location.
Oh, okay. It's kind of like in gaming, people talk about RPGs, role-playing games. I always think of rocket-propelled grenades. I always have 2 different conversations going on in my head at any given time.
It means both. So there you go. Multiple meanings depending on context.
Now, if I were to sign age, sex, location, that might help me out. Anyway, but no, to answer Petty's question, it's kind of a tough one, because I was a teenager. I was a Luke Perry fan. I loved vampires, and I did not care for this movie. But as evidenced by my worthy co-hosts here, it did work. So the answer is maybe.
It depends. Again,
I was a kid and I'm vampire biased.
I kind of had a crush on Christy Swanson after this, but I did enjoy Luke Perry and everybody in it. It hit for me. I think it was hit or miss for folks. I think, let's put it this way. In all honesty, it's probably a good thing in the end that Joss didn't make the movie that he wanted to make, because I don't think it would have been the right time for a movie like this. And if you look at the way he wrote the TV series, very fitting for its time. I don't think, because especially early 90s. I mean, I could be off. I mean, am I off, Cara? Do you think if you went the dark route and they took a more serious toe with it, it would have been a bigger hit, maybe?
I think it could have worked. It would have just been an entirely different movie, kind of like the argument, is Near Dark better or Lost Boys better? It's you still got a hit or miss thing. Like, it'll be similar, but will it still work?
Mm-hmm.
I think regardless of whatever issues were going on, I think the movie that we got was perfect for the time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think at least the studio got what they were looking for out of it, for sure. Quite a bit, and it worked for me. Ian, what do you think? Do you think it would have hit better if they would have gone the original Joss way, or was it good that it marinated for a while for Joss before he got the TV show going?
I mean, honestly, it's one of those things we'll never know, because I don't know if the failure of the movie, and I don't know how well it did, because if you said it was a budget of what you said, 7 million,
yeah,
made 16 or whatever,
yeah,
that's a little more than double its budget. But I'm not sure if the modern calculations have anything to do with that. Like, how much was advertising, Like
Right.
if a movie makes twice its money now, a lot of
Mhm.
times that's still not nearly good enough because of all the other
Yeah.
costs they have to cover. And it certainly didn't. I mean, it might have become sort of a cult thing and a video thing,
Mhm.
but it wasn't. It didn't burn down the the multiplexes with lots of screenings. But as far as like the Near Dark and Lost Boys, I think is a really good example because both of them are kind of cult movies.
Mhm.
Near Dark in particular, because that was one of the things that came out, and yeah, people kind of knew about it, but everybody knew the Lost Boys. That was like a mega hit.
Right.
So they both have followings, but one got kind of picked up by the loyal diehards who sought it out, and the other one has loyal diehards, but it's because they went to go see it along with everybody else.
Well,
I think
and it's got Sweaty Sax Guy. You can't
yes,
that trumps any other film is Sweaty Sax Guy. That's if he was in any movie, it'd make it better.
But it
true.
also has the definitive 80s stripper soundtrack.
That's true. It does. I love the soundtrack though. So.
Yeah, it's a wonderful soundtrack. I think if this movie had been more Lost Boys,
Mhm.
more in that vein, I think it really would have worked. But in that case, you almost need Joel Schumacher to work with Joss Whedon and help him
Yeah.
get this
Like,
thing into shape.
it would definitely be an entirely different movie, way darker. It wouldn't be as fun. There probably wouldn't be any of the gags or the cutesy little romance stuff. It'd definitely play a lot more straight, more serious.
Maybe. I mean, because if you look at Lost Boys is it's a dark movie, but it's also very kind of twistedly funny, which I think is why I'm saying I think it's more in line with probably the TV series. It's more of a horror movie, but it's got that kind of wry sense of humor, like with the Frog Brothers and that wonderful, like, ultimate closing line. That's one thing I could never
All the
stand about
damn vampires.
all the
The damn vampires.
Great.
Yeah, this one just has Buffy riding the motorcycle with her man Pike on back of the motorcycle.
He's
driving.
riding bitch.
Yeah, he's riding bitch. Which I think she almost seemed taller than him too. I mean, she seemed at least like more buff than she looked like she could kick his ass. So,
I mean, she was a cheerleader, right? So she's an athlete. She's got to be able to do that. And Pike, he lifts a bong to his lips, and that's about it, probably.
Yeah, and I've watched the movie too many times, so I could do her cheers, but I will not. Yeah. How funky is your chicken? How funky is your chicken? How loose is your goose? Our goose is totally loose. So come on, all you hog fans. And shake your caboose. Just shake your caboose.
I'm feeling exactly the way I did at pep rallies in high school, which is I hate all of you and I want to leave.
Oh, please don't leave. Petty also has a comment here. He said it worked, but not as well as the movie The Lost Boys. It's one of those cases where the son beats the father. Yeah, in many cases, The Lost Boys definitely got a better following than Buffy. And again, I think it was partly the type of movie that Buffy was. If you look at it, you can see the studio influences. I mean, we look at it now, hindsight of the interference, but it explains why you have pretty much every young up and coming star in this movie. They were looking at this as kind of striking the iron as hot, or seeing how they were going to Luke Perry was just getting into 90210. A few of these other, it was either their first time, but they had started on TV getting popular, and
Christy Swanson was a good choice. Like, if I remember correctly, she did Deadly Friend. She was in Flowers in the Attic. So she was already known.
Right.
She was in Ferris Bueller's Day Off 7 years earlier, playing a high school student.
Well, you stick with what you know if it's if it's going to get your work, right?
Well, she was still doing that in Dude, Where's My Car?
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah.
She was. But yeah, you're right. Christy Swanson was known in that demo that they were probably going for with it, and I liked her in this role. I thought she did fine. And again, out of all the characters, hers seems to be the one that may have held the closest to what Joss may have wanted. Not so much the vacuous part, but when you get into the more Slayer part, she very much felt similar to some of the beats that you see later on in Sarah Michelle Gellar's Buffy later on. So you can see they kept some of those bits in here for it, but it's definitely a product of its time, and I think it still holds up. I like the charm. If you enjoyed it before, I think you enjoyed it now. I still enjoy it quite a bit. Just don't go into it expecting the TV show or what you've gotten later on. Kara, what's your final thought with Buffy?
I love it. I'd say even if you just like horror comedies, campy horror, give it a try. You may enjoy it. There really isn't too much out there that I can think of that's similar, but it's a fun ride.
Mm-hmm. Ian, what about you? I know you've been the critic that I'm so happy that you are, so we can have some counterbalance. But
it's a weird place to be. I mean, I almost can't evaluate this movie on its own merits because I just see it as sort of as I've mentioned before, the sketch of something that I think actually works on its own merits. Mm-hmm. It's not often that I have this weird, like a nostalgia moment. It takes me back to when I was in high school to a movie I didn't enjoy.
Oh no, sorry. I was gonna say I think that's a lot of the charm is it does have that nostalgia, so it kind of does zip back. Like 90s fashion wasn't that great, but it's still fun to watch.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it is. And I mean, I was in high school. I was the target demo. I was in high school when this came out, 92. I was, a junior in high school when this came out. So maybe that's part of the reason why it struck a chord with me as well. Even though most of these folks were at least 5 years older than I was at the time. But, it had people I recognized. It had the tone that I was looking for, I guess, from it. So I take it as a separate entity, though. That I can fully say is just, if you can separate the TV show from this one, I think there's a lot of fun to be had. And if nothing else, if you're looking for a gateway horror film, like say you want to slowly maybe ease people into something with horror elements, preferably some younger folks, maybe this would be a fine movie. I mean, Petty is right, and Ian mentioned it as well. Just to get a flavor, you can bring it in, and it's pretty innocent enough, but it's got some of those horror bits in it for people to watch. And if they like it, then you can maybe ease them into something a little more like, Gremlins or Beetlejuice. Yeah. Beetlejuice or Gremlins, maybe go a little bit darker with your horror comedy. But yeah, I like it. It's some comfort food. It may be nostalgia for me as well, but I enjoy both. And yeah, so there you have it, folks. Petty's got one last comment. He said, excellent live, really enjoyed it. And yeah, he's going to check out Ian's show. So speaking of, that's a good segue for our license to shill. This is where I give my crew members the floor so that they can plug whatever they'd like. And so Ian, go ahead. Since Petty mentioned it, go ahead and plug your stuff, sir.
Well, I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also on YouTube. And yeah, as alluded to here, well, not even allude to, like just expressly spelled out, I do a live stream on Wednesday nights, which Mark is often good enough to hang out and talk with me and the crew about the latest Disney Marvel films, TV shows, rather. And unfortunately, we're in the middle of Moon Knight. So if you're
something that Ian and I actually agree on so far that has been rather meh. So it's something special, right? No,
I can't. Okay, the viewership for this live stream series has been steadily going down by like halves. I can't tell if it's a lack of interest in Moon Knight or if it's people just can't stand to see me melting down. They're averting their eyes. But I made this promise last week, and folks, tune in tomorrow and next week for the big finale. If things don't turn around, I will be shirtless for the episode 6 discussion. So imagine that.
Wow.
Yeah, I was about to say you need to make it racy, and you beat me to it.
She was.
Well, maybe I'll go the Chi-Chi's direction. I'll go bottomless. But no.
But how would we know unless you lower the camera?
How would you know, Mark? I'm offended.
Backless chaps.
Well, no, backless chaps. There you go. Actually, my parents had a friend who wore chaps one time before he was going to a specific club, and we won't talk about that. Anyway,
no, I just got an idea for like a British band called the Backless Chaps. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah,
but no, that's all my plugs. So join me and Mark. Hopefully, if you can make it tomorrow, 8:30 p.m. Central over on YouTube, and yeah, that's where we'll be.
Yeah, we'll sneak in the back door probably.
You're in the Backless Chaps anyway.
I know. Well, Backless Chaps, back door. Cara, please stop us from just babbling. Floor is yours. License to shill.
And that's that I started thinking all Jim Morrison Backdoor Man.
Good song. Anyway. No.
I don't really have anything new going on. I'm not too sure when I'm going to get back to video reviews, but I had a bunch of stuff that I put out during Easter, tons of little experimental shorts, 2 new film reviews in my nun getup, so that would be available on YouTube/horror retrospective if anyone's interested.
To which she makes a better nun than the nun in the movie The Nun. Yeah, because that movie. I'm already getting tired just thinking of that movie. So there you go. So yes, check out Horror Retrospective. Check out Kicking the Seat. I will just plug Sawdust City Fright Fest. You're a filmmaker. You have 1 month yet. We have till June 1st to where you can submit your horror film, short or feature film, to the Sawdust City Fright Fest. Check it out on Film Freeway. There's a link there. Search for Sawdust City Fright Fest. It'll come up. Real inexpensive tiers. And you get picked, and it'll show during the second weekend in October. So hope you enjoyed this conversation of Slaying It, our last episode of the month that is Slaying It. Next month, I guess I'll announce it now. We have the Night of the Night ofs is what it is next month, to where no, it almost made the list, but we've got some other night ofs, so I'm gonna save that one for another time. But Night of the Lepus is all its own. That movie, wow, that forced perspective, Janet Leigh and forced perspective rabbits. So but that won't be next month. That will be a different time. But stay tuned. We will be doing Night of the Demons for our Horror of 1988 month episode for next month. But the other Night of the Night ofs, you'll have to just stay tuned and find out what they are. So thank you so much, everyone. And I would just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Party with the animals, party. Go.